Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
It is good to be with you on this Shabbat. It is good to be together. I don't know about you. I've been traveling. I assume you've been traveling. It's good to be back together. You may have noticed as you came in that the book is a little different. And that is one way that we are trying to cue to you that the season is a little different. Please don't hyperventilate. It is now the Hebrew month of Elul, which is the month preceding the High Holy Days. It's going to be okay. All right. And in the month of Elul, we have these traditions of beginning to awaken our hearts to the themes of the High Holy Days. We start to introduce the liturgy. We start to introduce some of the rituals. All of that is about reminding ourselves that the work of the High Holy Days, the work of self-examination and of apology and repair to the people we may have harmed and to setting goals for who we want to be in the year to come, all of that, if done well, probably takes more than 10 days. And so we have a whole month to prepare ourselves so that we can fully use those 10 days. And so what you have in front of you is a special book that is for Elul and also for the beautiful service of Slichot in the week preceding Elul. And it's a tool for us to start to get our hearts into an Elul mood. And all of that is about trying to achieve the goal of this psalm that we recite every day during Elul, which is the 27th psalm, which is found, part of it is found on page 8. And it asks this beautiful question, just one thing I've asked of God, only this do I seek, to dwell in God's house all the days of my life, to behold divine sweetness and beauty, and to gaze in delight at God's temple. So the work of this season, the work of Elul, is to try and create in our hearts that sense that we will dwell in God's house all the days of our life. So we're going to feature some of the beautiful poetry in this book throughout the evening and some of the liturgy that is meant to awaken our hearts. And to do that, we're going to turn to page 6 and pray responsively at the top of the page. Before we slip too quickly into the season of the soul, let there be a Sabbath of Sabbaths for the heart.
Before the music of creation's majesty, let there be a silent praise of existence.
Before the feast of sanctified words, let there be a poetry of solitude.
Before we enter the palaces of prayer, let us find within ourselves a place of calm.
Before we revel in the wondrous and sublime, let there be an honest inward gaze.
Before the rites and ceremonies of awe, let there be quieter days, an island of attentiveness.
We continue welcoming Shabbat with the words of Lechu Niranana that can be found on the screen.
Actually, before we sing that,
because we should light candles.
We should light some candles.
So we are going to invite up Janice Poplak and Tracy Pesikoff to light the Shabbat candles this evening. Come over here. This first.
This first.
Yeah. That is it.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us.
As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu
Igner Shal Shabbat. Shabbat shalom. And now we're ready to welcome Shabbat with these words, Lechu Naranina. Page 22.
Shamor v'zachor v'diburecha
and face the entrance as we welcome in the Shabbat bride. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'b'tzola, toch emunei hamsegula. Boi chala, boi chala, lechat dodi, ligat kala, pene Shabbat, lekavela. Lechat dodi, ligat kala, pene Shabbat, lekavela.
We have already greeted the Sabbath bride, and since you're already standing, let's take a moment and greet each other. Turn to the people around you, wish them Shabbat Shalom. If you don't know them, introduce yourselves.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. We continue on page 26 for Baruch Hu. We remain standing.
Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, 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 yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai
We continue with our next prayer, which is Ma'ariv Aravim. We're going to turn back in our books to page 5 because there's a beautiful poem there called Praying the Sunset Prayer, page 5. I'll let you in on a secret about how one should pray the sunset prayer. It's a juicy bit of praying like strolling on grass. Nobody's chasing you, nobody hurries you. You walk toward your Creator with gifts in pure, empty hands. The words are golden, their meaning is transparent. It's as though you're saying them for the first time.
If you don't catch on that you should feel a little elevated, you're not praying the sunset prayer. The tune is sheer simplicity. You're just lending a helping hand to the sinking day. It's a heavy responsibility. You take a created day and you slip it into the archive of life, where all our lived out days are lying together.
The day is departing with a quiet kiss. It lies open at your feet while you stand saying the blessings. You can't create anything yourself, but you can lead the day to its end and see clearly the smile of its going down.
See how whole it all is, not diminished for a second. How you age with the days that keep dawning. How you bring your lived out day as a gift to eternity. Baruch atah Adonai, Amariv Aravim.
We turn back to page 30. Please be seated. Page 34.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
This time of year, this Elul time, is an in-between time. A time when we are not quite where we were and not yet where we are going. And it's a bit like the Israelites as they crossed the sea, down in the depths of the sea with the walls of parted water on each side. They too were in an in-between, not anymore in Egypt and not yet in freedom. And there's a midrash, a story that's not in the Torah but expands on the Torah. It's one of my favorite midrashim. I say that a lot. I have a lot of favorite midrashim. That if an Israelite woman was walking through the sea and she was carrying her baby and her baby started to cry because he was hungry, she could reach her hand into the wall of water and she could pull out an apple or any food that she could think of to feed her child. And I love that midrash because it's a reminder that those in-between times, which might seem barren and empty and just like they are surrounded by walls, those in-between times, if we can find ways to imagine our lives creatively, can be times of fruitfulness, can be times of sustenance, can be times when we can feed ourselves and feed those around us as we find our way into the promise of freedom. We continue with Mi Chamocha on page 40 as we celebrate that promise. We thank God for the gift of Shabbat with the beautiful poem on page 47. Shabbat Moment, it's called. A scarf trailing over the lilac sunset, fair weather clouds, cirrus and sinus, silk chiffon, twilight softens the air, whispering, "Come, lie down with me." Untie the knots of the will, Loosen your clenched grip, barren hills of bone. Here no edges to hone, only the palm fallen open as a rose about to toss its petals. What have you made? What have you spoiled? Let go. Let twilight empty the crowded rooms, quiet the jostling colors to hues of swirling water, pearls of fog. This is the time for letting go, like a released balloon dwindling. Tilt your neck and let your face open to the sky like a pond catching light, drinking the darkness. We continue with Vishamru on the opposing page.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. I need your help. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
We continue with the Amidah, which begins on page 48 as we rise in body or in spirit.
שפתי תפתח, ופי יגיד, ופי יגיד תהילתך. Avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor veHanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezocher Chasdei Avot ve'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei HaKol Atah Rav Lehoshia, Morid Hatal, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayei HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afai, Michamocha Bal Gevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Memit Umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'nemanata le'achayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Michayei hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yehallelu Selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
Please be seated. Page 69. All that is glorious around us is not for me, the grand vistas, sublime peaks, mist-filled overlooks, towering clouds, but doing errands on a day of driving rain, staying dry inside the silver skin of the car, 160,000 miles still running just fine. Or later, sitting in a cafe warmed by the steam from white chicken, chili, 2 cups of dark coffee, watching the red and gold leaves race down the street, confetti from autumn's bright parade. And I think of how my mother struggles to breathe, how few good days she has now, how we never think about the glories of breath, oxygen cascading down our throats to the lungs, simple as the journey of water over rock. It's the nature of stone to be satisfied, writes Mary Oliver. It's the nature of water to want to be somewhere else, rushing down a rocky tor or a high escarpment, the panoramic landscape boundless behind it. But everything glorious is around us already. Black and blue graffiti shining in the rain's bright glaze, the small rainbow of oil on the pavement where the last car to park has left its mark on the glistening street, this radiant world. We continue with Shalom Rav on page 70.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Ki atah Melech Adon, Lechol Hashalom.
We're going to pause now for a few moments of silent prayer and meditation on the themes of the day, on the themes of the season, on the queries of our hearts. And when we come back together, it will be on page 8 for the Psalm of Elul, the 27th Psalm. We pray now silently.
אחת שאלתי מאת אדוני, אחת שאלתי אותה אבקש, אחת שאלתי מאת אדוני, אחת שאלתי אותה אבקש, שבתי שבתי בבית אדוני, שבתי שבתי כל ימי חיי, שבתי שבתי בבית אדוני, שבתי שבתי כל ימי חיי, לחזות בנועם אדוני ולבקר בהיכלו, לחזות בנועם אדוני, to gaze upon the beauty of Adonai. One thing I ask you, Adonai, to be with you all of my life. One thing I ask you, Adonai, to be with you all of my life. אחת שאלתי מאת אדוני, אחת שאלתי אותה אבקש.
We turn our prayerful attention now to those in our lives and in our community who are in need of healing and wholeness and strength and hope. We think about those with the pains we see and those with the pains we can never see, those who struggle with chronic pain and chronic illness, those who struggle with addiction and those who are in recovery. We send our prayers also to the caregivers who offer strength and hope every day. We hold in our heart, in particular this Shabbat, all the families affected by the fires in Hawaii, knowing that they are in need of shlemut, of wholeness, even if that wholeness never looks the same. In our congregation, we're praying for Charlotte Berkowitz, Melba Berman, Eileen Sersansky, Robert Cohn, Kathy Ellinger, Barbara Fenton, Carol Friedman, Marcine S. Goldman, Chuck Green, Rabbi Marcy Green, Barbara Halfant, Roxanne Harrison, Joyce Haufrecht, Terry Hazelwood, Robin Hodgkins, Lenny Holzbrand, Christina Howard, Paul Huff, Sarah James, Susan Johnson, Simon Kim, Brad Kovnat, Lawrence Levy, Betsy Lewis, Samuel Lewis, Jared Maidenberg, Karen Mendonça, Amanda Musselwhite, Dahlia Natan, Magdalene Pessin, Hattie Reese, Alan Reingold, Neil Reisman, Sidney Rogan, Bernard Rosenfeld, Anne Runesevel, Esther Rozga, Carol Rubenstein, Beth Kuntz Saban, AJ Saper, Joel Selzer, Edward Simmons, Leslie Simmons, Lori Smith, John Solaz, Inez Taylor, Andy Ward, Lenny Weinberger, Brandon Weinreb, Roberta Weiss, Yvonne Zients, Ariella Sharon Bat Yafa Shoshana, Gelka Nechama Bat Lebachaya, Noach Ben Binyamin, Shena Yosefet, Shimshon Ben Fagel, Yoshua Matityahu Ben Yaakov Prevachana, Yosefa Zelzel Bat Herschel Zelig, and all who are suffering with afflictions of body, mind, and spirit. We offer these words of healing and hope, which are found on page 77. We have one blessing this evening for Terry and Esther Treistman. If you will rise where you are. They are celebrating their 30th wedding anniversary. That's deserving of applause, I agree. I got to know you better because I did not do this wedding. We won't do the math on whether I was alive, but because I got to do your children's wedding this year. And through that experience, I got some sense of what incredible role models they have in marriage. What incredible role models they have for a loving and caring, compassionate family that cares about community, that cares about each other, that cares about their children, and that cares about the world. They are lucky to have you to look to for many years of blessed happiness together. And we are so honored and overjoyed that you wanted to celebrate this momentous milestone with us. And so we offer you these words from our tradition with the hope that you have many more joyous years of growth and health and happiness together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Mazel tov.
Mazel tov. A couple of announcements on this Shabbat. We hope you'll stay after services for our last summer community Shabbat dinner. Want to do the next one?
Oh.
Or
I thought you
I'll
were doing
keep
it.
going.
Yeah.
Okay. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., our special Gems of Elul starts. Elul
well, as we've talked about all night, this month that precedes the High Holy Days, a time of preparation and introspection. And so our usual Gems of Torah study class for 4 weeks of learning focused on the practice of Musar, the traditional practice of moral and spiritual exploration. Together we will study selections from the Musar Torah commentary. And so we hope you will join us. It's held on Zoom, led by members of clergy and our Director of Lifelong Learning. You can register for these opportunities online so we can send you the article each week. But if you haven't registered and you want to come tomorrow, please join us. And next Friday, August 25th, Helfman Religious School families are invited to join us for Shabbat services at 6, and afterward we will come together for a dinner. We hope to see you there, and registration will be open through this coming Wednesday.
I saw an Instagram video the other day saying that a parent should never repeat themselves more than twice. I watched it thinking, I don't know what kind of kids this parent is raising, but I know they are not human children. I'm the parent of 3 strong-headed young girls, and as a result, the phrase I find myself saying a lot these days is, don't make me repeat myself. It's on that long list of phrases I heard from my parents and swore I'd never say. Because I Said So is another classic. But despite my exhortations, I do repeat myself quite a bit. If don't make me repeat myself is a parental mantra, it is also a mantra for the Torah. The Torah is terse, never wasting words, which makes a short phrase in this week's Parsha intriguing. We read from Parshat Shoftim, or Judges, which, as you might guess, gives a number of laws about judges and courts and the judicial system. And in the midst is the memorable phrase, Tzedek, Tzedek tirdof. Justice, justice shall you pursue. It's one of the most oft-quoted verses of the Torah, a short but compelling mission statement for the Jewish people. It's a powerful phrase, beautiful because of its brevity. In Hebrew, just 3 words, tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. And 2 of those words are repeated. Would tzedek, tirdof not have communicated the same thing? Perhaps the doubling of the first word serves as emphasis. Surely you shall pursue justice. But as I said before, the Torah never uses 2 words when one will do. And this has caused the rabbis throughout the generations to assert that this additional tzedek must have its own unique meaning. They debate over what it might be. Rabbi Martin Buber opens his 1947 book of collected Hasidic sayings with this story. There was once a Hasidic master named Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchak of Peshishka, but his students call him Yid HaKudosh, the Holy Jew. The Holy Yid, that's a great nickname. They asked him, Master, why is the word tzedek repeated in Parshat Shoftim? Would not one have been sufficient? The Yid HaKudosh answered, we ought to follow justice with justice and not unrighteousness. That means that the use of unrighteousness as a means to righteousness, to righteous ends, makes the end itself unrighteous. Injustice as a means to injustice renders the justice unjust. Unlike the Torah, the Yid HaKudosh was not known for his brevity. But his student, who later became the head rabbi of Peshishka, Rabbi Simcha Bunim, sums it up this way: with justice shall you pursue justice. Even the pursuit of justice must employ only just means. For the Hasidic masters of Peshishka, tzedek is repeated in our verse to teach us that it is not only just ends that we must pursue, we must also ensure we use just means. Our Parsha paints a picture of a society built on just ends, fair courts, and unbiased opinions. But how does one pursue just means? It's interesting to me that Rabbi Buber, one of the greatest Jewish philosophers of the 20th century, opens his book with this question, because it is a question that plagued him throughout his life. Buber was born in Austria in 1878 and was raised in an Orthodox household. He left his traditional upbringing and studied secular philosophy of Kant and Kierkegaard and Nietzsche in Vienna. In 1889, he became a Zionist, attending congresses and helping to organize for the cause. In 1930, he moved to Germany to become a professor at the University of Frankfurt, but he resigned his position 3 years later when Hitler came to power. He fled Germany in 1938 and moved to pre-state Palestine, where he settled in Jerusalem and received a professorship at Hebrew University. Just a few months after Buber left Europe on November 9th, 1938, was Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass, where Nazi thugs destroyed Jewish-owned businesses, synagogues, and homes all over Germany. Sometime shortly thereafter, an article was published by another great thinker of the age, Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi had decided, I think unsolicited, to weigh in on how the Jews might best resist the Nazi regime. Essentially, Gandhi is asking the question of the Hasidic rabbis, what are just means that Jews should use to pursue just ends in Germany? Gandhi writes that the Jews should employ the same method which he advocated for his Indian brethren, the path of nonviolent resistance. He empathizes with the Jews and their plight under the Nazi regime, and he mentions his own friends in the Jewish community from his time in South Africa. He acknowledges the depth of anti-Semitism in European history, but still he says that a nonviolent path has worked for him and will work for the Jews. He encourages satyagraha, or soul force, acts of dignity so powerful that they will melt the hearts of your oppressors and sway them to your side. Gandhi writes, let the Jews who claim to be the chosen race prove their title by choosing the way of nonviolence for vindicating their position on earth. Essentially, Gandhi's argument is that nonviolence is the only just ends to achieve just means. Buber got his hands on Gandhi's letter, and he was having none of it. He published a forceful, open letter rebuking and refuting Gandhi's assertions. Buber is perhaps most famous for his philosophy of I-thou, the idea that through dialectical conversation we can achieve human relationships that transcend to the level of the divine. But Buber's open letter to Gandhi can basically be summed up as, I think thou should keep thou's thoughts to thyself. Buber writes, in 5 years I myself spent under the present regime, I observed many instances of genuine satyagraha among the Jews, instances showing a strength of spirit. Such actions, however, exerted apparently not the slightest influence on their opponents. All honors and deeds to those who displayed such strength of soul. He asserts that the effectiveness of pacifism would be limited by the violence of the Nazi regime. Do you think, perhaps, he asked, that a Jew in Germany could pronounce in public one single sentence of a speech such as yours without being knocked down? As I read these letters this week, I couldn't help but think of the video that it's making its rounds on the social internet of a prominent ex-U.S. general speaking at an evangelical conference who remarks that he was surprised that the Jews of Europe so willingly submitted to Nazi extermination. Why, he wonders, did they not fight back? He ignores, of course, the many instances of Jewish resistance, and he ignores the systematic deception, dehumanization, intimidation, starvation that the Nazis deployed to keep the Jews from being able to rise up. This is a form of Holocaust denial, and it should be called out and condemned. But it is also interesting in light of Gandhi's letter at the time, such as the way of our critics. In the face of annihilation, we are too passive for some, too active for others. But back to Buber. Even in his letter back to Gandhi, emphatic as it may be, Buber is wrestling with his own sense of what constitutes just means. One of Gandhi's other criticisms had been for the Zionist project in what was then Palestine. He did not view that as a solution either, encouraging European Jews to stay in Europe and criticizing violence between Jews and Arabs in Palestine. And in his response, Buber also condemns that violence. He speaks of the two different but legitimate claims to the land. He calls for a genuine peace where Jews and Arabs together would develop the land without one imposing its will on the other. He recognizes that this is hard, but insists that it's not impossible. He writes, "We were and still are well aware that this unusual, yes, unprecedented case is a question of seeking new ways of understanding and cordial agreement between the nations." In one letter, he calls for nonviolence and rejects it. He wrestles with how different contexts require different means to achieve justice. He engages with another great mind through letters sent across thousands of miles, all to determine the best, most just course of action. In these words, I see a man struggling with the demands of justice, especially in unprecedented times. It's perhaps easy for Rabbi Simcha Bunim to say, tzedek, tzedek tirdof means just ends achieved by just means, but it's a lot harder to figure out what that means, especially when the danger is closing in. And in reading these words this week, I thought of all the struggles of justice in our own day. I thought of the crisis in Israel where fringe voices in the Knesset are seeking to subvert democracy and impose their will upon the majority of the nation, and the ongoing crisis between Israelis and Palestinians, which has only gotten more entrenched and more complex since Buber's time. All of this demands justice. And I thought of our challenges here at home, the threats to democracy, the ongoing dialogue about accountability and responsibility for political figures. What are the demands of justice here? How are they tempered by the context of who holds power and who is oppressed? I think of the fires in Hawaii and the unequal burden of climate change. This too demands justice. And it is true not just on a national level, but on a personal one. We have entered into this season of Elul, our time to prepare for the High Holy Days. We think of the ways we have been wronged and the ways we have wronged others. How will we achieve justice in our relationships? What are the just means and the just ends that we will pursue between now and the days of awe? The goal is clear, but the path to get there is not. Returning to Buber's letter to Gandhi, I think he models a path forward through these murky waters. Buber's philosophy of I and thou is all about dialogue. It's all about encountering the other. He may reject Gandhi's assertions, but he's willing to engage with them, engage with him around them. He wants to be in dialogue with this man, this stranger who is also his peer. In his letter, he is even arguing with himself, trying to find meaning in two contradictory ideas, the dream of peaceful resistance and its apparent limitations. For Buber, we find God in the dialogue, when we elevate from the it to the thou, and he models that dialogue in his letter. Perhaps this is why tzedek is repeated twice, to remind us that we cannot achieve justice alone. Justice is only found in the dialogue between opposing ideals, between the powerful and the powerless, between the privileged and the oppressed, between the perpetrator and the victim. A justice pursued in a vacuum is not justice at all. We must bring others along. We must engage with their views, especially when they differ from our own. In this season of return, when we examine our own souls to understand the harm we have caused and the harm that has been done to us, may we find justice and work and comfort in the faces of others. May we find partners and allies in the hard work, the heart work of teshuvah, repentance. As we face the challenges of our world, may we be inspired to pursue dialogical justice, a justice of diverse voices, of common good, of shared commitments. And in this way, may we find blessing in our pursuit. Shabbat Shalom. We continue now with Aleinu L'Shabeach, which is found somewhere, 78, and we rise in body or in spirit. L'Shabeach Ladon HaKol, Lateit Gedula
Liotzer Breshit, Shelo Asanu Kegoye Ha'aratzot, Velo Samanu Kamishpechot Adama, Shelo Sam Chelkeinu Kahem, Vegorali ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, life and death. We take a quiet moment for the silent work of memory. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for a blessing. Our hearts go out in sympathy to the family of Joan Shaffron, who was laid to rest in recent days. We also recall the yard sites of Adele Adato, Edith Bass, Lila Feldman Berkson, Morris Berman, Mary Nell Bleeker, Sidney Blumenreich, Ellen Lisa Bonyek, Terry Brooke, Eileen Bundman, Rose Singerman Byron, Rose Carroll, Barry Chesner, Ben Cohen, Shelley Cohen, Flora Kahn, Laura Polly Daly, Elise Daly, Elsie Daly, Dora Dom, David Robert Dochin, Ruth Eisenstadt, Michael Epstein, Minnie Faden, Betty Brownstein Farfel, Ruth Feldgreber, Stanley C. Firestein, Abraham Frankel, Lee Silverman Freed, Kay Linda Friedson, Harry Gertz, Julian Goldberg, Morris L. Goldstein, Nathan Goodfriend, Celine Gorel, Dr. Matthew Greenberg, Stan Gritz, Harry Grossman, Barbara Ponsky Joseph, Boris Karash, Amelia Klein, Ruth Pulaski Lack, Joseph Lane, Barbara Levine, Lena Levine, Anita Lewis, Ann Schultz Lewis, Mina Littman, Bernard Locke, Florence Lowe, Ben A. Matuzzi, Anthony Mayer, Milton Miller, Edith Lewis Parkins, Carrie Pasternak, Blanche Celia Paul, Marvin Curtis Pelham, Joel Pittman, Isidore Max Poborski, Damian Todd Rabelais, Herman Rath, Zelda Robinson, Samuel Root, Gerald Rosen, Sadie Rosemarin, Santa Mae Schaefer, Joy Sheffris, Mark Schraber, Albert Shemtob, Israel Silber, Benjamin Joseph Silberman, Bertha Davis Simon, Esther Slotnick, Fillmore M. Zondak, Louis Spivak, Jared Stafford, Max Stolman, Louis Stukalin, Arnold Sussman, Clara Tabakow, John Jack G. Trafton, Bobby Unger, Lee Krell Weems, Mason Locke Weems, Julius Weinberg, Eleanor Weisbaum, Stanley Winkleman, and David Weisner. The words of Mourner's Kaddish are found on page 86. We rise in body or spirit together. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei rabbah, be'alma divrach yirtei v'amich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'galav v'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mivorach le'olam omei maya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitchomam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal shmei dikud shabrichu, Le'ela mimchol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'ne'emata, damiram be'ama v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru amen.
Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen.
Please be seated as we turn to the words of Kiddush, which can be found on page 12.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu. Zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh, zecher litziat mitzrayim. Ki vanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, ve'shabbat kodecha, be'ahava uvratzon, inchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh haShabbat l'chaim. Oh, every time. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
At the conclusion of tonight's service, if you've signed up to join us for our community Shabbat dinner, we hope you will head towards Feld Hall to dine with us. Our closing song was also our opening song, Ozi v'Zimrat Yah, on page 3.
Ozi v'Zimrat Yah, vayhi li Yeshua. Ozi v'Zimrat Yah, vayhi li Yeshua. Ozi v'Zimrat Yah, vayhi li Yeshua. Ozi v'Zimrat Yah, vayhi li Yeshua.
We start to hear the sound of the shofar. It is our wake-up call for the soul. I invite you please to rise for the sounding of the shofar. Page 90. The shofar curves upward. Its name means beauty. Its essence is ascent. Sound of the ram's horn, lift us from lethargy, shatter despair. Beauty beckons, tomorrow's door is opened, and we can be better than we are.
Tekiah. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
little